Body weight, potassium, nitrogen, muscle size, leg performance, strength increased significant in 6 weeks.
LGD is the D-Bol of the SARMs. All these steroids, like, they all have one thing in common. They increase protein synthesis. Okay, Dianabol and all the different ways that we can use it. Dianabol, the oral steroid, comes in usually 10 milligrams. Sometimes before it came in 5 milligram tablets. We know the standard bodybuilding cycle is to run something like 20 to 40 milligrams of D-Bol. And some people start with the D-Bol only cycle. Sometimes they start with the testosterone. They add D-Bol for a kickstart. I just wanted to explore really quickly all the different usage of D-Bol, because I don't think anybody's ever done that, and get the full spectrum of it from one extreme to the other. And King Tolo, especially, like, what are the most extreme D-Bol protocols you've heard of? So let's go from the extreme, and then let's go to like the TRT approach to using D-Bol. So King Tolo, what are the most extreme applications of D-Bol that you've seen?
I've seen D-Bol ran by my clients up to 120 mg per day, which I highly do not agree with because it's liver toxic. Yes, it's extreme. Now, they're taking it multiple times throughout the day because the short half-life is anywhere between 3 to 6 hours, but it's debatable. I say it lands within the 5. But by taking that much, you're going to get a lot of water retention, gyno, stuff like that. Like, it's going to aromatize. It's a testosterone derivative. Now, also, lots of people like taking it solo. I say don't. I understand, it's initially made as an androgen replacement therapy, and it's made to help burn victims. But I don't believe in doing oral-only cycles because either way, you're going to crash your testosterone levels. Another way I've taken it, me personally, at nighttime, because it actually does suppress your appetite. And I found that by my personal use, taking about 50 mg per day, I'm a little bit more lenient for the D-Bol. And I was taking it at nighttime, and I got significant gains. But then again, some people also take it as a pre-workout because it's a quick androgen. The issue I have with people doing that is you're putting your body in a fluctuation. You're going up and down, peaks and valleys, highs and lows. And I believe in more or less keeping your blood levels stable. So I say 3 times a day should be more than adequate enough. Take it morning with breakfast so you're not suppressing your appetite, lunchtime, and then, dinner time, or you can take, the mid one right before you work out. So those are some of the ways I'm used to taking it. I'm not a big advocate of it. I rather more or less anadrol, only because it's a DHT derivative, and I like my DHTs. The issue with anadrol is hair loss. But besides that, you're going to get a nice bigger size to you. And, yeah, that's really what I have for D-Bol.
How about combining D-Bol and anadrol?
That's doable. Because one's going to aromatize, and actually anadrol I think it does mess with your estrogen receptors. So it does cause a form of gyno, but a little bit of electro, you could use AI or something of that nature would subside it. But either way you do it, actually, I'm going to experiment with that probably next week. So I'm actually going to do that. I'm running anadrol now. So, and I have a bunch of D-Bol, just sitting around for last year. So I'm going to try that out, let you guys know. But
at 120 milligrams of D-Bol, of course, the side effects must be horrendous, like water retention, bloating, appetite suppression. Okay. But what kind of benefits? I mean, is that like, does it feel like a miracle? Would it feel amazing?
Well, you're going to get intracellular gains. Like, you're going to get gains. You're going to get strength increase. You're going to get pumps. But how much of that is going to be muscle? I actually pulled a PubMed before I sent it to Robert. At 100 milligrams per day, 6 weeks, body weight, potassium, nitrogen, muscle size, leg performance, strength increased significant in 6 weeks. A majority of that stayed after the cycle. So a lot of people have this misconception it's all going to be water weight. Yes, you're getting the intercellular water retention, nitrogen, glycogen, but when it sheds off, you're going to keep a lot of that muscle in itself. So
studies don't usually go high dosages on steroids. Like, studies are usually done for like TRT and muscle wasting disease. This sounds like a bodybuilder steroid medical study.
Yeah, that was a PubMed. I sent it over to Robert. I was fishing around. It's very hard to find, studies on D-Bol.
Do they test like liver toxicity or anything at the end?
Not in that study, no.
It was just about the gains.
It's just about the gains.
Bodybuilder made this study.
Probably. It's a PubMed, though. So
yeah,
on
no, I
top,
see it too, and it's government. I mean, usually too with D-Bol, right? Like you're using it for cancer and cancer patients to build
burn
muscle.
victims too.
Burn victims, HIV patients. It's a lot of steroids are used in either cancer or HIV patients. But like usually seeing, like 100. You're right, 100 milligrams of D-Bol is a placebo.
That's a lot.
And it's like you really got to ask yourself the liver toxicity that comes along with it and the other sides. I don't know.
Rob, what's the most D-Bol you ever ran?
I have never ran D-Bol because I was always too big. So, when we could talk about T-Bol on another one, T-Bol, I could be the T-Bol king with that, but D-Bol I still have never touched.
All right, Seth, D-Bol. Seth, your D-Bol experience.
D-Bol was my first ever cycle along with test only. And guys, this is not advice or anything like that whatsoever, but I would not recommend it without test because it will definitely crash you. I did not know anything about D-Bol at the time too, and I think I was taking like 1 or 2 a day, and I was just putting out a bunch of water retention because I didn't really know anything about it. But then later on down the road, once I got more knowledge about D-Bol, I was able to mitigate the side effects of the water retention because that could go along with your diet and your training as well, just like Tola was saying. So, I mean, I think the highest I've ran it was 50 megs.
I never actually went really high in the dosage on D-Bol. I mean, I'm trying to remember if I ever went over 40 milligrams. To me, it was always enough, because at a certain point when you're taking gear is no longer the limiting factor, food and training was. So I'm not sure I ever had the training and diet on point enough to run D-Bol only, because when the diet and training was on point, it was like pre-competition or something. And then I was doing a longer strategy. I didn't want to rely on orals, for example. So I might swing back to the D-Bol. But how about the other extreme of like the lowest dosage D-Bol? Because we know that a very low dosage is still effective. There were studies on that, like 5 milligrams, 10 milligrams. And normally bodybuilders take, like 5 times the therapeutic dosage of something. So the therapeutic dosage is still effective. What do you think about those low dosages, Tola?
Well, I think the low dosage still has its application as far as for helping you with strength increase, a little bit of endurance, getting a little water weight on you, probably retaining a little bit more potassium. So it can help you, like, let's say you're running like Tren, which is going to suck all the potassium out, or, DHT or something of that nature. And then now you're getting a little potassium retention from that. So it can help you prevent cramps and stuff of that nature, help probably with minor injuries. So I don't really see an issue as far as for running it at a low dose. And I probably would recommend most people who haven't tried it, always start little and work your way up to see how your body reacts. And then you're not going to get all the water retention. So therefore your blood pressure might not be as high. You're not going to have the hypertension. So I think low dose is good, but for ladies, I would stay away from it because it could cause viralization.
Yeah,
it converts to estrogen, which is a bad thing, if you have too much, but can be a good thing. Like Seth, you did all these SARMs only cycles. You noticed that your estrogen was low, and you add something in that increases your estrogen, and you get that fullness again. Did you, Seth, did you ever add D-Bol for the purpose of increasing estrogen?
I think I did an LGD and D-Bol together just once because I had some laying around at the same time. But I don't think I had any estrogen related side effects on that time because I was more knowledgeable and experienced about it, especially with my diet. So, I mean, even with the LGD, if you were to add something like that in, I don't think it would increase more water bloating if you had it if your intake of water is good and your diet's on point. So like what you were saying, I think it just depends on your diet and what it's like dieting when you're on D-Bol or LGD because they're very similar in effects.
Yeah, if we're on the keto diet or carnivore diet, or we're dieting hard and we're feeling really flat, then we want some more water retention.
That's a good point.
Yeah.
And of course, there's been bodybuilders in the past taking D-Bol right before a show just to fill out. So D-Bol live their carbs and fill out the muscles, you know, especially if they're completely depleted. So I can see how 10 to 20 milligrams could help in that aspect as well. Right beyond stage, get you a quick little pump.
My theory before was if you took D-Bol like to bridge and you just took a small amount, or D-Bol only cycle, you took a really small amount in the morning, like 10 milligrams when you first wake up. Maybe you can be anabolic all day. Maybe at nighttime, the D-Bol level and the estrogen level comes down a little bit. Maybe your natural testosterone production isn't as interfered with, and maybe you still get some natural testosterone production at night and the D-Bol spike in the morning.
What's the actual half-life of D-Bol?
It's 3 to 6 hours, ranging in between. But there's been experiments, I believe, you know, of people actually trying to prescribe it for hypogonadism. So I could see how it could make a good bridge in that aspect. But then again, after a few weeks, you know, I don't really see it being helpful if you have no test base. You know, if you're planning on just taking a break from injectables for a week or two, absolutely. But there's a lot of bro science behind it. You know, there used to be just D-Bol only cycles, or D-Bol with Primo, a little bit of Deca, like the old school, you know, golden era, you know, type cycles. And I think they all looked phenomenal back then. You know, in all honesty, I don't really see any flaws with their physiques. So
I wonder if, like, especially Tony, like, you know, how these people are bridging a lot of SARMs now with, like, steroids and stuff like that. Let's like say, for instance, like how I did the D-Bol and Ligandrol together. They both have different half-lives. So Ligandrol is 24-hour half-life, and D-Bol is only 3 to 6 hours. So technically, you could take them side by side and do like a 1 day on, 2 days off, or whatever kind of protocol. And you'll still keep that fullness and maybe have less water retention that way.
Well, how would you compare the D-Bol to the LGD?
So go ahead, Tony. Want to take
in comparison?
Well, they say like LGD is the D-Bol of the SARMs, right?
Yeah.
So if there's any SARM that acts like D-Bol, it would be LGD, right? I think using the LGD as a foundation, so you never go so you're always anabolic. So you have, just like running a test base. It's like the Ligandrol can be the test base, and then the D-Bol on top gives you those spikes, and it gives you estrogen. And the estrogen, even though the half-life of D-Bol may be only 5 hours, the estrogen tail, like the conversion to estrogen, and the estrogen will circulate in the body. The estrogen's half-life is longer, right? So we could take D-Bol once a day, have enough estrogen all day long, and then the LGD be building the muscle at night.
Oh, that's yeah. That would make sense.
It's honestly a shame so many people dismiss SARMs. Like, I've played with plenty of SARMs, and I got some of my best gains off of some of the SARMs, you know, K677, or, you know, bridging with RAD 140 in between cycles. Like, I have a video on my YouTube, take a RAD 140 in between, gain 15 pounds like nothing. So
I tell you, one of the best workouts for me ever was like you pop 2 S23s right before you work out, and it's just like,
that'd be also like taking, let's say, like Anavar and Osterine like back to back. So you could do like something more mild like that. If you were a female and you wanted to gain more mass, you could like literally take one after another because the half-lives are so different. So if you look at the half-life, one is going to be longer. Like the SARM might be longer half-life than the steroid. So one's going to come out of your system a little bit more. So then you will actually cycle on to the SARM the next day. So it's just like microdosing, but you're microdosing with a steroid and a SARM together.
Yeah, highly effective.
Oh, another use of D-Bol would be like just variety, just because if you're trying to use different compounds, let's say you only have so many to choose from. D-Bol is one of the most widely available, and you don't want to run the same compound, whether it's Anadrol or Ligandrol, for super long periods of time, because maybe it doesn't work as well over time. Maybe you got to increase the dosage. With increased dosage comes more side effects. Maybe the side effects aggregate over time. Like there's a lot of subtle side effects maybe that you don't notice in the short term, but you run a compound longer, those side effects start aggregating, building up. So having D-Bol as an option just for variety, like let's say we were doing the Ligandrol for a while. We're like, all right, let's give our body a break from Ligandrol and switch to D-Bol. So there's another use, is just the variety of it.
And I say, you know, pre-workout's more than helpful enough too, because if you think of it, if you're getting that quick rapid androgen in your body, you take it an hour before you work out, you're going to be pushing your PRs, you're going to be pushing those reps. In return, you're going to be breaking down your muscle and recovering, and then you're going to get gains. And a lot of people fail to acknowledge that. That's one of the best pre-workouts you could really take. And I've been doing that with my Anadrol, but it pretty much has the same exact, you know, application. You know, whether you favor one or the other, it's going to push you through. So just because you don't want all the estrogen throughout your body throughout the day, or, you know, taking D-Bol throughout the day, you're afraid of these side effects, take it as a pre-workout. Take 10 to 20 milligrams before you work out, check it out, and see how you really feel afterwards. It'll be out of your system before you go to sleep.
People really need to start breaking that gap a little bit of just like, you know, you see the bro science and the forums like, oh, you got to take 50 milligrams or whatever every single day at the same time, blah, blah, blah. But like you guys just hit it on the money. Like just same thing with the SARMs. It's like utilize it when it's needed and make it as effective as possible, depending on how your body is and everything. Like if you're already prone to estrogen conversion and you're already, you know, or maybe you're a little bit on the, you know, more body fat side, like maybe take 10 milligrams or something like that before you work out and utilize it instead of, you know, again, this is medical advice, instead of just going on the forums and being like, oh, I got to start off with 50 milligrams or whatever, you know, like
everybody's going to react differently to different compounds. I could go up to a gram of test without even getting estradiol side effects. Like, yeah. So everyone reacts differently. I go up to 600, you know, milligrams of trend before I even need to touch Caber or Pramby.
So, Christ.
Yeah. Wow.
I know, and told me some of his things. I was just like, I was sitting there. I'm like, but you know what? Everybody's different. Everybody's physiologically different. You know, we have the same anatomy. But our bodies.
When you hear D-Bol, is there any like brand or one that jumps out at you? A lot of the old school guys, when they hear D-Bol, they're like, "Oh yeah, Blue Hearts," which is
the Blue Hearts and the British Dragons from back in the day.
Right.
British Dragons.
Yeah,
those were.
You know, I'm just waiting until the original guys who were involved in British Dragon and some other things that started the entire industry. Until hopefully, they'll still be alive. But I'm gonna get them on. I'm gonna get them on a podcast one day.
Oh,
whether they have to be anonymous or not. But you want to hear like how the whole steroid industry started in the first place? We have that. We have access to that. Just gotta get a documentary on it.
I honestly think, you know, there'll be a day where they decriminalize it, but once they do that, that's when they're going to hit it with the taxes in the United States. They're already doing that with cannabis. They're doing that. You know, you go to, you know, California, they're giving people syringes and Suboxones, but yet you have like testosterone you can't get yet, or which is going to make you better.
I was told in Canada that they're legalizing narcotics in about like 14, 15 days. It's all going to be legal there, so they're going to be able to purchase anything. You could have it possessed.
Well, it's proven to work. It's proven to work in other countries, right? Like I think Portugal was one of the first countries to do that, right? They decriminalized it, and what happened in return, like automatically, you know, of course, you're going to have your. We're not even going to say it. But you're going to have your certain people that'd be like, oh, addiction and everything's going to go. First of all, addiction, and that has nothing to do with steroids. But, like, you know, it's already rampant throughout the United States and stuff like that. And they found that in other countries where they decriminalized things and actually had more resources and tools behind them, the rates of crime, of everything just went way down.
Well, this is what going to go back to the conversation we had last time. Demasculization. You're on testosterone. What are you going to have? You're going to have more confidence, more motivation, clearer thinking. You're going to be more alpha. You're going to not be controlled as easy versus it's a lot easier by give us all this junk and letting us take, whatever type of drugs or whatever, drink alcohol, and then just lose touch of reality. All right, feed them alcohol, feed them this, feed them a reality show, let them know what Kim Kardashian's shaking her ass, and just distract them.
You know, people get skewed with masculinity. They think it's a bad thing. They think it involves anger. They think it involves fear. It's actually it's the complete opposite of that.
Well, yeah, if you look at like old action movies, you see like Arnold Schwarzenegger just running around with this machine gun, shooting everything up. And now you look at action movies, it's a 120-pound kid doing kung fu moves. So it's a little bit different, wearing skinny jeans.
They could all use some D-Bol.
Yeah, they call use D-Bol.
You know, you look back on the day too, like when Tony, and I strongly believe Tony started this movement with the whole thing, you know, back in the day on YouTube and stuff like that, to where it's at now in the last 7 years, right, Tony? Like you can even see it, like, you know, even look at the documentary and stuff like Enhanced and stuff like that. Like you see TikTok and things like that. Like it's becoming, the more people have knowledge on it, the more people that educate themselves on it, the less scary and the more, in my view, the safer it becomes. Because, you know, when you have people having the guessing game out there and not really knowing what they're doing, it becomes scary, you know? And it's like, there also becomes a movement along with it too. The more people that know about it, the more truth behind it, the more free it becomes.
But the issue is the more of that, the more misinformation as well, if you notice.
That is true. Because
like, when I was growing up, if I want to know anything about anabolics, I either ask my dad, he was a bodybuilder, ask my uncle, go to the library, or find a forum, you know, some shady forum with, you know, a guy with no profile picture. That's it. And we got a lot of good information back then, and that's with less technology. Now that there's more technology, people are just spewing out shit for views, you know, and it's going to cause more issues. That's why they're happy. They should be happy to have people like Tony around, you know, that's going to break down some stuff and let people know you don't only have to blast this. You can run this, or some of my information I give out. You can run this, mitigate this side effect, run this, versus, you know, you got kids running around. Oh, your first cycle, you should be taking a gram of Tren. No, that's BS. That's nonsense. But so the more availability we have with information, it's a 50-50. It's helpful and it's harmful at the same token.
Good point. Because especially too with how, you know, going back into the SARM conversation, right? Like
there's a guy on YouTube called Anabolic Doc, and he tries to help people out too. I actually like some of his content, and he does it from a non-biased way. And then there's Dr. Testosterone. They do it all from a scientific way. But not only are they reading studies and their medical books, they're also asking professional bodybuilders as well. So they're non-biased. They're not going to sit there. You know, that'd be great, get Anabolic Doc on with one day. He's asking about us as well as pushing through. So, you know, medical research. So.
Yeah. Also, another thing about D-Bol, because we're going to talk about IGF in the next video. But one of the benefits of D-Bol, I think it was that it increased IGF levels. It's one of its
D-Bol did?
Yeah, because all these steroids, like, they all have one thing in common: they increase protein synthesis, right? Yes. But then there's a lot of other things that each steroid does. Like, some have neurological benefits and give you strength, and then the water retention, the estrogen, and the IGF. So, like, the fact that it's the problem is that a lot of these liver toxic oral steroids, like Anadrol, also, like, one of the reasons they work is that they increase IGF levels, I believe. At least that's, remember with Coach Trevor, I was always like, why don't we just inject D-Bol? I mean, it makes sense because it would be half the liver toxicity. Instead of going through the liver when you digest it and when it's circulating through the blood, you skip the liver on the first pass, inject it, you could do twice as much for the same liver toxicity.
Oh, you get the same bioavailability
going through the liver that makes it anabolic.
Did you ever you get the same bioavailability though, milligram for milligram? Because if you're injecting it, you got to put it in, you know, a suspension, you know, to get the exact milligram. If not, it's going to be esterized.
It's usually, so D-Bol would usually be milligram for milligram with no ester injection, and Anadrol also. Yeah, I've never seen an ester attached to Anadrol or D-Bol. So it's always, even if it's injected, it's because it's still going to be really short acting, maybe even more short acting. Right.
So that'll probably more or less make a great pre-workout then.
Ooh. Yeah. Yeah. So I mean, like Liver King's IGF levels were low, right? So there's a lot of things he could have done to increase his IGF levels, like adding like a D-Bol or an Anadrol may have helped increase IGF. This is something worth looking into. This is something I've operated under based on Coach Trevor's approach that seem to make sense, because we just don't seem to get the same results with injecting these as we do taking them oral.